This is a note to the forgotten feminine, with love letters to and from all kinds of women. Here for the daughters carrying the world upon their spine, where for the silence of our grandmothers we rise. Here to remember our power and shed our doubt. Forget the bullshit the patriarchy's on about. This is a note to the forgotten feminine, with love letters to and from all kinds of women.
Do you feel like you are constantly waking up to a life that doesn't feel quite right? It feels heavy and busy, but not with things that you want to do, but with things that you feel like you have to do. And maybe because you feel this way, you often, maybe constantly feel burnt out or overwhelmed or at capacity, and it feels like there's no amount of sleep or alone time or self-care that refills your cup. Hi everyone, it's so lovely to have you here. My name is Mariana. I'm a somatic attachment coach, founder of The Enlightened Woman, and host of the Letters to and From Women podcast. And this is our second official week after the relaunch of the podcast. If you haven't gone and listened to the first 3 episodes, I highly encourage that you do so after this one. But I'm so excited because this conversation is particularly special to me for 2 reasons. The first being that this is exactly where I was at just 2 months ago. Very depressed, burnt out, in freeze, numb, feeling so directionless, and at the same time overwhelmed by I didn't even know what in every facet of my life. And I got myself out of that through a very unconventional approach that bridged my understanding of the body and the nervous system with what we need to feel fully replenished and aligned with our true selves. And the other reason why it feels very special to me is because obviously as a somatic coach, my main focus when I see clients and just in the training that I do is the nervous system. And this conversation that we're going to have today is exactly about that. When we experience these states of overwhelm and freeze and directionlessness, that is our internal world creating external dysregulation. And the problem is that we are fed so many lies about just pushing through and having this warrior mentality. And if you don't get up at a certain time every morning and do these 10 things right bang out from the get-go, then you're a loser and you're weak-minded. And there is a time and a place for that. But if you are feeling in any way, shape, or form the same as what I described at the start of this episode, what I am here to do is to help you truly listen to what your nervous system is trying to tell you right now, because I promise you that when you do and you learn to listen to those signals, you will unlock that freedom and that ease and that peace that you're craving. It's just that you have to learn how to listen to yourself, but we're just not taught how to do that. And that is what we're going to be doing today. So I want to start our conversation by telling you a bit about where I started on my journey of realizing that I was living a life that really wasn't mine, and the clues that I gathered along the way to help pull myself out of that very deep and dark hole. So my journey started probably a very long time ago, when I first learned that abandoning myself was the way to do life. But my journey out of that was this last November of 2025. I hit a brick, tall, unshatterable wall, it felt like. I was waking up every morning feeling very depressed, very gray of an outlook towards life, very overwhelmed by things that I couldn't even find the words to explain. I felt like my business wasn't mine. I wasn't enjoying myself in my business. Every day felt like a rat race trying to get behind deadlines and produce new offers and trying to reel in more clients, all the while going to a day job in mental health and substance abuse that I've been using for some time to fund my business and to gain experience in the field. But this job had started to weigh on me so much, and it was burning me out so much. And even in the mornings before work and before doing my business, I would wake up, and the first thing that I would experience every morning was this crippling anxiety around, oh my God, like I need to get up, I need to work out before I go to work. How am I going to figure out how many steps to get in today? And when am I going to meal prep? I need to make sure that I meal prep in under 30 minutes because I have to go do all these other things. Like every morning, every day, the tone was set by this constant feeling like if I wasn't being productive, I wasn't doing enough. I found myself always craving time to do art and to pour my energy into things that just felt open and like they fueled my creativity. But I never gave myself the permission or the time to do those things unless I told myself I did all of my other to-dos first. I would always put myself last. And because I always put myself last, I never felt like I had time because my time was being sacrificed to the things that I was telling myself I had to do. And so what I did, as any normal sane person would do, is I ran away to a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. Now, I'm going to record a separate episode on my journey through Vipassana and where I'll go deeper into what Vipassana is and what it isn't. But to give you the rundown here briefly, Vipassana is the style of meditation that the Buddha, Siddhartha, became famous for, teaching people how to achieve enlightenment. And Vipassana, as a method of meditation, what it does is it stems from Buddhist belief that believes that the root of our suffering lies in our brain's tendency to react to everything in life from a place of avoidance or from addiction and lust. So essentially, this Buddhist belief believes, again, that we either avoid pain, we avoid discomfort, and we funnel our energy into that avoidance, never actually facing the thing, or we funnel all our time into chasing, into lusting after people and things because we think we need to have them to be happy instead of slowing down and finding that fulfillment within. And so I spent 10 days at this meditation retreat center in complete silence, couldn't talk to anybody except myself or the assistant teacher for 10 days, eating 2 meals a day, meditating 12 hours a day, learning how to train my mind out of that pattern of reacting from one of those two places. And it was insanely transformative. I cannot wait to do an episode for you guys on what that all was like. But what was interesting is that, of course, when you leave this very controlled and isolated meditation center is when the work actually begins in real life. And so I was super excited to come home. I felt like this completely transformed and lighter version of myself. And I got home on a Sunday and I'm getting ready to go to work 2 days later. And the evening hits and I'm like running through my list of to-dos that I have to do for the next day, and my body just went into freeze, and a worse freeze than it had previous to the meditation retreat. Because what I realized is that as soon as all those thoughts about I have to go to the gym and I have to go to work and then I have to come home and work on my business for X amount of hours and then I have to dedicate time to this friend and this other friend and then do chores and blah, 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 the way that I was approaching life was entirely from a place of bullying myself to avoid the guilt of not feeling enough. And so for days, I would wake up and instead of doing anything in the morning, I would just lie in bed paralyzed and nothing would get done, including after work, until I realized that the reason why I was experiencing this paralysis is because I had acknowledged it and therefore I could no longer ignore, nor did it feel natural for my body to move from this place of guilt and shame. And so the question became not, how do I make the time in my day to do all these things, but rather, what do I actually want to do and from what place within? Now, that was mid-January, and now it is the end of March. It's the last day of March as you're listening to this episode, and I can tell you that life looks and feels so much more peaceful, easeful, and stress-free, and most importantly, more full of time, not because I filled my time with more things, but because I gave myself the permission to dedicate that time to things that felt enjoyable, fulfilling, and intentional. Something that was totally foreign to me before that. And I'm sure as you're listening to that, it probably feels very foreign to you too, because we live in a society that capitalizes productivity over genuine desire. So in this episode, I'm going to break down what I did over the last 6 to 8 weeks to transform my nervous system from feeling burnt out to totally and utterly energized, and going from paralysis to action by teaching you how to heal your burnout by doing less, how to stop feeling like you don't have time, and how to identify what actually makes your time feel meaningfully spent rather than given away. So, you know how people say that the opposite of depression is not happiness, but expression? I can honestly say that this experience completely solidified the significance of this statement for me, but not in the way that most people would think. And I want to offer you a reframe to this very common ideal, because I do believe that you can be doing something that's authentic to you, but still feel numb doing it. And it's not necessarily the thing that you're doing, but rather how you're walking into doing that thing or those things. In a day-to-day sense, I believe that what makes us feel depressed or overwhelmed is A, of course, not doing enough of the things that actually light up our soul, but B, how we talk ourselves into doing things that we do or don't want to do. And so I want you to think back to the last time that you were doing exercise or you were at the gym or at a workout class. And I want you to think about what your dialogue was like doing that. Were you feeling excited? Were you praising yourself after hard sets, for sweating, for finishing your workout? Or were you looking at yourself in the mirror and criticizing how your body looked, or how your cellulite looked, or how cringy you looked doing a certain exercise, or how weak you were, or how behind you were in comparison to your other workout mates? Or what about the last time you were doing something creative for yourself, like journaling, or writing, or painting, or singing, or dancing? What were you saying to yourself during this thing that maybe was meant for nobody else's eyes, but your brain still found a way to criticize you out of feeling confident about it? Were you criticizing how bad your writing or your painting was? Or were you criticizing yourself on your singing abilities or your instrument playing abilities? Personally, I realized that literally everything that I was doing with my day-to-day, I was quite literally bullying myself into, because I felt like I had to. And I felt like the things that I wanted to do out of pure enjoyment were unworthy or unproductive, and therefore they didn't deserve the time unless they were done after everything else I thought I had to do. So like I said, I would wake up and immediately be like, oh, you're so effing lazy, like get your ass on the mat, turning on that YouTube workout video, or let's go, like, why isn't your Excel spreadsheet with your content calendar pulled up right now? Why haven't you like gotten up to do your hair? Like, just immediately upon waking up, my narrative was harmful and frankly abusive and so not supportive for listening to what my body was trying to communicate with me through the overwhelm, because I would push through the overwhelm and I would reach the end of the day and just feel completely defeated. And so a few days after coming home from my Vipassana retreat and feeling the worst paralysis I'd ever experienced, I decided enough was enough, and I designed myself a very unconventional and to some perhaps rebellious approach that I'm going to talk to you about right here, that I believe if you do, and I'll teach you how, could transform your life as well. For 3 to 4 weeks, I chose to do the exact opposite of what I felt I had to do. So every morning, instead of waking up and immediately thinking about the workout I had to do or going for a run or how many steps I needed to get in that day, I woke up and moved along with what my creativity wanted to do. Some mornings I would journal, some mornings I would play some music and dance, other mornings I went for a walk, other mornings I made myself a longer and more creative breakfast instead of like a yogurt bowl to go. And in the afternoons, outside of work and seeing clients in my business, of course, I would get home, I would put my phone away on do not disturb, and I would just give myself 10 to 30 minutes to whole afternoons of boredom. And the goal behind introducing boredom was because I wanted to let my body guide me naturally to what it felt moved and aligned with doing. Some days it was seeing a friend. Other days it was getting home and doing a face mask. Other days it was cooking myself a longer meal for me and my family and my partner. Most days it was writing some kind of long form article or poetry, because some of you may or may not know that I am also a writer outside of being a coach and a podcast host. And other days I gravitated towards working out naturally. It happened few times in those 3 to 4 weeks, but it still happened naturally when it did. Now, why boredom was the key ingredient for this experiment for me was because boredom activates this network of structures and neurons in our brain called the default mode network. And this is a system in the human brain that turns on when there's boredom and directs attention to inward activities like self-reflection, creativity, thinking about the past, etc. And I find this so incredibly interesting because it shows that evolutionarily, we are meant to go inward to find what drives our curiosity and our fulfillment before taking that outwards. It's fascinating and it's so beautiful when you think about it that way. And I am not saying this was easy. It was very hard. There were some days that I felt so cripplingly guilty. I would cry at the end of the day because I felt like I had done nothing that was meaningful. And it made me realize so much about my conception of what productivity was and what enough meant to me and what I had been forcing myself to do for so long out of shame, rather than because it actually felt like something that was supportive to me. And it was so unbelievably worth it, because here's what happened at the end of those 4 weeks. I started waking up and getting out of bed almost immediately, aside from the moments where I will sit there and express some gratitude or like just let my thoughts roll so my brain wakes up. I felt healthier and with more energy than I've ever had. I felt more connected to my partner with more of a full cup to pour into him and into our relationship and therefore my friendships as well. The clarity in my business skyrocketed. I started focusing less on productivity and more on presence throughout my whole day. And notably, I stopped procrastinating chores and errands for days on end because I no longer felt that like mind fogging overwhelm anymore. And before I tell you why all these outcomes happened, because I kept a lot of notes and I talked about it to a lot of people as it was happening, I want to invite you to something because as I was thinking about recording this episode throughout the last week, I had a very good idea. I decided that on April 15th, I am going to be running this exact challenge for 10 days inside my sisterhood called Belong. It's going to be 10 days of healing your nervous system out of burnout paralysis and into energized inspiration by dropping into the body to discover what activities light up your heart. You're going to learn how to identify if you're doing things out of guilt or desire, and how to rebuild your relationship to productivity to actually fill your time with things that fill up your soul. We're going to do multiple somatic healing sessions to eradicate that burnout and that stressful energy from your nervous system. We're going to do daily check-ins on our feed where you'll be given the space to post pictures of your process and any insights that have come through for you. And at the very end, I'm going to be offering prizes to a select few women that join us for the entire challenge. And by the way, whenever any woman joins my sisterhood, she automatically gets the first 30 days inside the group for free. So if you are seeing or listening to this anytime before April 15th, you will get access to this challenge completely for free. I've added the link to create your account and get instant access in the show notes of the episode below, or you can head to the link at www.belong-sisterhood.circle.so to get instant access to our group, to meet who is in the group with us, to join our wonderful community of women who are dedicated to their healing and to getting in touch with their most authentic selves. And like I said, this process transformed my life, and it is my only desire to give that same gift to you as well. So I highly encourage that you join our 10-day challenge from April 15th to April 25th of 2026. So now that I told you about the process that I did and what happened as a result of that, I want to tell you about the 3 major internal shifts that created those changes over those 4 weeks and why it totally transformed the state of my nervous system. So number 1, to begin, what happened when I gave myself intentional time away from things that I was doing on autopilot that gave me the space to analyze my relationship to those things. And that may seem very intuitive up front. It's like, yeah, like if you are confused about something, take some space away from it. The same thing that we do with projects or essays or anything of that nature. But I think it's very easy to get caught in that rat race because we're more often fed the idea that when it comes to things like exercise or your routine or work, things that are considered productive, you should push your way through overwhelm and do those things because otherwise it reflects something negative about you. And like I said before, there is a time and place for that discipline to take part in that decision making. But if you don't even know why you're doing the things that you're doing and you're just pressuring yourself into doing them anyways, you're gonna end up right back where you started. And for me, what I realized, admittedly and vulnerably, was that I was driving myself to the ground doing exercise every day because I was afraid of gaining weight. Because when I was younger, up into my early 20s, I was not the skinniest girl in the town. And I grew up with a lot of shame around that and a lot of body image issues around that. And I thought that if I went back there, it meant that I had gotten weaker or that I had just let myself go. My state of freeze and indecision in my business was because I didn't trust that how I wanted to run my business was worthy or productive. And so I just kept trying to emulate what I saw other people doing because I gave their methods more trust than what I truly wanted to do. And the fact of the matter is, and we know this from science, is that you cannot shame yourself into things and expect those things to stay sustainable. When you let yourself move towards things out of genuine desire, that is what creates momentum, and that motivation is easier to sustain over time. The second biggest shift that happened for me is I accepted that there are things that I'm just always going to have to do, but because of that, I should give them more priority with my time. Ladies, the fact of the matter is, we are always going to have to cook for ourselves, to clean our rooms, our houses, our toilet bowls, our showers, our jewelry boxes. We're always going to have to shower. We're always going to have to exercise. We're always going to have to give ourselves a space for self-care. These are things we need as human beings to sustain life, whether we like it or not. And I think it's really easy to tell ourselves that we shouldn't be allocating a lot of time to these things, or if we only allocate a small amount of time to these things, we will be more productive because we see all these videos of spend a day in the life with me's with by other creators where there these like super fast time lapses of them doing a million things in a day and whipping out this like 30-minute meal. And listen, I am a one pot meal girly. I am. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. But I also realized that I don't want to always be a one pot meal girly all the time, because when I start putting, when I start productivizing, I don't even know if that's a word, but when I start to try to make everything productive, that is when it starts to feel like a chore. I need you to take this as your permission slip to stop trying to make your day more productive and instead focus on trying to make your day feel more present. When you slow down and reduce the expectations that you have of yourself on a day-to-day basis, and instead focus on funneling more energy and creativity and presence into the things that you have to do, you will automatically feel more energized. Because now life becomes about living slowly and fully embodied and honestly sensually. And it's very tantric because when you're doing the things that you do out of a place of presence, you're automatically doing them from a place of love, which generates inner peace and alignment by default. The things you need to do will always feel heavier when all you do is fill all your time with things you feel you need to do. And so my challenge to you is stop trying to make every meal a one pot meal. Stop trying to just do a quick 20-minute workout here and there. Stop trying to listen to a podcast or an audiobook while you do your hair or brush your teeth or walk on the treadmill. Start focusing on noticing how you feel in those things, pouring more time into the meals you choose and the work that it takes to go out and get the ingredients for them and prepare them, and start letting yourself spend more time in the gym to maybe do your workout and then stretch and then maybe go get a coffee afterwards, because you're always going to have to do these things. It just so happens that we have to work because we live in a very expensive society, right? And for a lot of us, our work fulfills our purpose, but you were not put here to be a machine. And when you start funneling your energy into creating more embodied presence in your day, that is what makes you feel like you've got your time back. And the third, and arguably most important shift that happened for me over these 4 weeks is that by giving my time to what felt good, it opened my eyes to what felt right and sustainable. Now, this applies to me more in the context of my relationship to my business, but this will also definitely apply to you if you are in a job that you are sick of and don't love anymore. Maybe you're trying to leave that job, or maybe you're trying to find a new hobby or routine to build into your day. What I mean when I say I gave my time to what felt good, I mean that I allowed myself to observe what my body moved towards naturally, with ease, and with fullness of desire from within. And like I said, for me, most days that I woke up in the morning or I got home from my day job, that thing that felt natural was writing. I'd whip out my journal and write some poetry, or I'd open my Substack and write an article that I would then publish to my Letters to and From Women community. But whether or not the world saw that piece of writing, funneling my energy into writing started giving me more life and energy, because now I was pouring my time into something that I always wanted to do, but just was never really giving myself the time or space to do more of. And the moment I did that, I automatically had more energy, more motivation, more inspiration in my day, and it made it easier for me to realize what things in my day or in my routine also gave me that same feeling versus what things really didn't. So in my business, for example, I do like making Instagram posts, I do like making videos, but oh my goodness, like with an algorithm that prioritizes what's trending versus what's authentic and true art, I just got so sick of social media. And what I realized is that the way that I really wanted to communicate my ideas to people and how I wanted to create change in people's lives was through my writing and through my voice, which is how the podcast came to be, right? And also, when I gave myself the space in the morning to have the first thing I did be a creative endeavor, I was way better at moving on to the to-dos that I had to do, like exercise or running emails, without feeling like I was sacrificing my time towards those things, because that feeling of sacrifice is what led to procrastination, to paralysis, and to just not getting anything done, period. When you give yourself the permission to move towards the things that light up your soul, without doing it because it's productive or because it's helping you achieve something or because it's something that you can show to others for validation, you become magnetic for other things in your life that fulfill that same need. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about doing things with presence, because all of a sudden I started picking recipes that brought me joy to try. And I started going on longer walks, and I came back to exercise from a place of genuine desire, and I started pouring more of my time into dance versus forcing myself to go to the gym, because dance was and has been the thing for some time that has brought me just the utmost joy. And instead of feeling guilty about those things, I realized that trusting the goodness of what it felt is what was giving me life force and what was contributing to feeling more focused in the things that were important, because your focus comes from not just your energy, not just the dopamine available in your brain, but from the intention behind which you do things. And you can sustain focus for longer periods of time when it's something that comes from a place of genuine desire versus shame, as we've been saying. And so my hope is, in summary, that if you gather nothing else from this episode, that you take it as a permission slip. Girl, because life is too damn short to bully yourself into losing weight, into looking good, into fulfilling somebody else's agenda, into achieving things that are more important to somebody else's ego over your own, and for giving your precious time and energy to things that only deplete you versus make you feel like more of a full, whole, and embodied version of yourself. So, in summary, you have permission to move away from things that you're unsure about and come back to them with a full body yes once you're clear on the intention that's driving those endeavors. When you focus on being more present over productive in your day, you will feel 10 times more energized. And lastly, when you move towards what naturally feels good, it clarifies what you can devote yourself to with little to no friction in the long term. Life is about feeling good and feeling into the things that you do rather than rationalizing why you should or shouldn't do them based on somebody else's expectations of you. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all so much for spending this time with me. I hope that this was not only an invitation and a permission slip and a hug to your nervous system, but also the aha moment that you needed to realize how to take your life back and make it your own. Like I said, on April 15th, I will be starting that 10-day challenge inside my sisterhood called Belong. You can head to the link in the show notes below to grab your spot. We've got quite a few, so it should be no worries there. And at the same time, you get to join a beautiful community of women dedicated to their healing. If you want to stay connected to the podcast on social media, you can find us on Instagram at Letters to and From Women Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this episode and to the show on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube if you're watching or listening. Send it to a friend or somebody who would find this episode equally as transformative and life-changing. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.